Today I'm filming a collaboration with Karina from Lifting Pins and Needles where we're both reviewing the Lilliana Jacket by Seamwork. So if that interests you, stay tuned.
Hey, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky.
Hi, if we haven't met, my name's Claire and this is my channel Penguin and Pear Dressmaking, where I talk about all things sewing. If you're new to the channel or you're returning and you haven't subscribed yet, do hit that red button below as that really helps me out. So let's get on with the video. So a little while ago, Karina from Lifting Pins and Needles, she approached me and asked whether I would like to do a collaboration with her. And obviously I jumped at the chance to do that. I've been watching Karina for a couple of years now. Absolutely love her channel so much. On her channel, she kind of specialises in hacking patterns. So she'll take a pattern and make something different with it. Normally she likes to take the arms off, or she might change major design elements of the pattern so it fits what she wants specifically. It's really empowering to be able to do that. So if you like that sort of thing, do head over to her channel after my video, of course, and check her out and subscribe to her because she's really worth watching. So we both decided to make the Seamwork magazine Lilliana jacket. I've got mine here. Here's the finished make. It's a bit creased. Check out that hand sewing there. Now I was going to wear it in the video, but you can't really see it anyway in the video. And this, I don't know if you can see this even, but this is my Kimberley dress by AK Patterns. So those of you that are returning to my vlog may have eagle eyes and see I've got a different backdrop here. Do you like it? I just bought a cheap backdrop from Amazon. It's only arrived today, so it's still got creases in it. I have tried to iron it, but they're not coming out. So I'm hoping the weight of it will just drop out. Fingers crossed. But I think it's better than what I did have, so I'm going to go with it. So in terms of giving the pattern review, I wanted a bit more structure to my pattern reviews than I've had in the past. So I did download the Curvy Collective's template. They have a template on their website for doing reviews. It's for blog posts, but I adapted it for a vlog. I will link in the description box below so you can grab it if you want it as well. As I mentioned, the pattern is the Lilliana by Seamwork magazine. Now this is a jacket that comes to the waist. It's almost like a Chanel type jacket, and I think you could possibly make a Chanel jacket out of this pattern if you wanted. That's not the look I was going for. As you saw, my jacket is in denim, but I've been through a number of different fabrics getting to that denim. So I will explain that as we go along. So what I'm going to do today is take you through all the details of the pattern and how I made it, my construction, how I found it, and then give you my thoughts at the end. So do keep watching if that interests you. It's got two patterns, so it's got patterns for what is deemed a normal size and patterns for a plus size. And I obviously came in the plus size. I don't think they call them plus size, I think they call them curvy. I'm not 100% sure on the size range. I think the pattern goes up to size 26. I'll put on screen the size measurements that the pattern comes in because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do know it goes up to a size 26. In terms of measurements, I'm a 49 bust, 46 waist and a 56 hip to give you an idea of my sizing. Now in the patterns, in all Seamwork patterns, I come in at a size 24, which is one below the top end. But when I made the denim jacket, the Audrey jacket by Seamwork before, which I'll link above there, the 24 was far too big for me. So I ended up making the size 20. And the arms were a tad tight, but not too tight. Still wearable, but probably could have done with 1/2 inch more ease. This time I decided that I was going to make the size 20 and do a bicep adjustment, and I figured that is all I would need to do. Famous last words, eh? In terms of height, I'm 5'6" and I'm a pear shape, as you see from my measurements, because my hips are much wider than my waist and my bust. I had printed an A0 pattern. Liz from Colville Fabrics on Facebook is now printing A0 copies for people if they want to. She has an email address. Do look her up on Colville Fabrics on Facebook if you're interested in that. Do check her out if you need some printing done. So I traced off a size 20 and I made a ½ inch adjustment on the shoulder seam, bringing it in by ½ inch. And then so what I did is I just brought it up and then I made the curve go into the rest of the curve, if you know what. I blended the curve. I also did a bicep adjustment of 2 inches, which changed it quite significantly. So I made a toile, and I'll insert a picture here. I sent these pictures to Karina. The back was very tight, and all across the top of the shoulders was very tight, and the arms, although I could get it on just about, it didn't sit nicely. I was a bit unsure what to do because I had loads of excess fabric around the waist and it was just super tight at the top. So I spoke to Karina, and I have to say, throughout us interacting regarding this collaboration, she has been so helpful, and it's really good. I think I said this in my collaboration with Natural Dane, that it's just really good to have someone to talk to about making a pattern, especially as you're making the same pattern, because I've got lots of people I can talk to about patterns, but it's very rare that they're going to be making the same one as me. So it was really helpful. And Karina suggested that I go up a size at the top, and then under the arms I grade into the size below. So I did that. I traced it off again at a size 22 at the top into a 20 at the waist. Because that increased the arm, I only did a 1 inch bicep adjustment on that size, which was a big mistake actually. Oh, and another adjustment I made, because on the pattern there's a seam running down the centre back, and I don't see any need for that whatsoever. So I did omit that seam and cut it on the fold. And to do that, all you do is you take off the seam allowance, which in this pattern's case is 5/8, and then you just cut it on the fold rather than, you know, 2 pieces. So as I was saying, I did a bicep adjustment on the size 22, but only a 1 inch rather than a 2 inch. Because I had that extra room going up a size, I figured that that would be okay. So I made a second toile up, and I just used some home furnishing fabric. I'm not even sure what it was. It was almost like a suede, but a really heavy suede. It was just what I had to hand and that I wasn't going to use for anything else. So I made it up in that, tried it on, much better. Still slightly tight in the arms, but it was nothing to write home about. So I just figured that if I used a 3/8 seam allowance instead of a 5/8, it'll be absolutely fine. So that's what I did. So next I had to decide on what fabric I was going to use. I didn't buy fabric especially, I wanted to use something from my stash. And I had this fabric that I bought about 3 years ago from Sew Over It. I got it in their sale and absolutely loved it. And it is, that's the back of it. That, and I don't know if you can see, but it's got gold flecks running through it, because it is a jacquard, as you can see. This is the back. So I decided I was going to cut into this fabric. It is a fairly precious fabric, I have to say, but I've got to use it at some point, so I decided to cut into it. As you can tell from what you've just seen, it didn't actually work out very well. So I made up the shell, which is what this is. You see the arm there. So I made up the shell and I tried it on, and guess what? Doesn't fit. The arms are way too tight and it's not wearable. I can't even get the shoulder seam up to the shoulder seam. I don't know what went wrong. And by this time I'm working against the clock a little bit, so I was panicking somewhat, I have to admit. I messaged Karina going, oh my God, disaster is struck. I can't believe it. The worst of it is you might think to unpick it, but this fabric frays as soon as you look at it. It's got fairly open weave, and I'd sewed it in the same colour as the actual fabric, and it had sunk in really deeply. Added to that, I zigzagged the edges so to reinforce that it doesn't fray. You see there? There was no way I was going to attempt to unpick this fabric because I would just ruin the whole thing if I did. So I will make this up at some point when I've lost a little bit more weight. But for now, it's not going to fit, and I had to abandon ship. So I had to decide what I was going to do from here on in. What I did is I added another 1.5 inches to the arm. So that was an 1.5 inch bicep adjustment. So in total, there was a 2.5 inch bicep adjustment, as well as having gone up to a size 22. Though to be fair, I should have been in a 24 to start with. I know how to do that adjustment, but if you're not sure, check out Whitney from Tomcat Stitchery. She has just done a tutorial. It's probably about 4 or 5 videos back. And it's really, really good and explains it all really clearly. So do check that out. So in addition to doing that, when I cut on the fold, what I did is I kept some of the seam allowance at the top of the pattern, but tapered down to none of the seam allowance at the bottom. And when I talk about that, I just mean that line where the fold line is, where the cut line would have been. So then I was racking my brains, completely racking my brains, trying to work out what fabric I was going to use, because that brown fabric was the one I'd thought about and had in my mind. Hadn't considered any of the others. So I was going through my stash and I really didn't know. I had a few different ones. I could have made it in the denim that I made my Audrey in, but I thought that'd just make it too similar. Then I thought about some other canvas fabrics I had, but nothing felt right. I wanted something that was fairly plain so that it would go with pretty much anything, because summer's coming now, but we do still get some chilly days, so it'd be nice to wear out. Those of you on my Instagram may have seen me wearing this picture the other day, and that was a pinafore I made from Helen's Closet, and I made that in a denim, and I had some of that denim left over, so I used it, and that is what I made this in. Oh, something else I also made a change to was on the final one, was I brought the shoulder in another inch, because it really should have come in 2 inches more, so 2.5 inches. But if I'd taken it off 2.5 inches, it would have changed the shape of the armhole far too much. So I took 1 inch from the inside and 1 inch from the outside, which was a mistake, and I'll show you why later. But that's what I did when I made the final one. So I made it up, I whipped it up really quickly. Now I intended at this stage to do a lining, which never happened. So I wasn't worrying about finishing my seams. So I just whipped it up. I had a few issues with puckering on the sleeve head, as you'll see there. I redid that 3 times. And I just gave up in the end. I thought, I'm not doing it again. It isn't great. But, you know, it's just by my hairline. No one's going to really notice. It's only us hairdressers that notice these tiny things, isn't it? So I'm not too worried about that. But it would have helped if I'd gathered the head a bit. I didn't gather it all. I just eased it in. So other than that, there were no issues with sewing it up. I did try it on at this stage and it fitted as well as could be expected. By this point, I just wanted to get the whole thing made up, to be honest. So next was to do a lining, but I wanted to do a facing and attach a lining to that. So I watched a tutorial by Anika from Made to Sew on how to draft a lining, and her tutorial's really clear as well, so do check hers out. All the links and stuff will be in the description box below. So I drafted my facings, and that took a little while, and by the time I'd done that, I thought I haven't got time to draft a lining as well. So I decided to just go with the actual facing and omit the lining altogether. To my shock and horror, the facing worked perfectly the first time. I had a few issues because I was running really low on that fabric and I had hardly any left. At one point, I thought disaster had struck again. What I decided to do was cut the facing on the fold. So you'll see there's a line. There's a line there, but it's not fantastic. But, you know, who's going to see it when I'm wearing it? No one. It's not going to matter. And as Karina said, it's not a bad thing because it would add strength to the facing. So I drew my facing like that to go under the arm as well. And then on the front, it joins round like that and goes right down to the bottom of the jacket. And for the armholes, I just serged and hand stitched the facing to the actual body. So yeah, the facing went together really well. I couldn't complain. If you'd like me to do a tutorial on how to draft a facing, then do leave a comment below and I will get on to that. It's a really simple thing to do. So if you haven't drafted one before, you'll be surprised at how simple it is. I sewed the facing in, and the only thing left to do was the thing I dread the most. You know what it is, don't you? Hand sewing. Who likes hand sewing? Leave a comment if you love to hand sew, because tell me what it is you love about hand sewing, because I just do not get it. And I kind of pull it off. I should have done the hand sewing last night, and I'll just pull it off and pull it off. And in the end, I just thought I'd do it in the morning. So that's what I was doing this morning. I serged my sleeves and then I folded them over and just hemmed them by hand. And you can barely see anything on the right side. So I just did that watching a film this morning. So I did both arms, and then as I mentioned, I sewed the sleeve head to the facing on both arms, and that secured the facing down. I also put a little catch stitch there to stop it from flapping up, and then I did my hem. So I just turned it under one. This fabric, look at this fabric. It looks like it's been bleached. It's almost like a tie-dye effect. Look at that. It's kind of cool, don't you think? And so that was the construction of my jacket. The fabric I bought from, I think I bought it from Minerva Crafts, and it was like $2.99 a metre, and this was going back a year, 2 years ago. It won't be available on their site now. I think it was just some fabric that they were wanting to get rid of. I actually made a little bag, so I've got 3 garments out of it. I made a little crossbody bag, I made my pinafore, and now I've made that out of it. So I've got a good amount of things out of it, and for only $2.99 you can't go wrong. Oh, speaking of Minerva, my blog post is available now. So if you'd like to go and have a look at that, and that's for my black and white Kimberley dress, I'll leave a link below. So how did I find the instructions? I don't know is the answer to that. I didn't read the instructions, to be honest, but I have used instructions from Seamwork before. I feel kind of in the middle with them, to be honest. They're fairly clear, but there's often like a technique that's fairly confusing and I can't work out what they're talking about. But for the most part, they are fairly straightforward. I've got a question on my sheet. It says, was the pattern a good fit? No, it wasn't. Not for me. Karina has had a different experience to me, but for me, it wasn't a good fit at all. Seamwork magazine patterns never are a great fit. I mean, even the Minetta dress, which was a jersey dress, I had problems with. So I kind of think I'm going to steer away from Seamwork in future, I think. Which is a shame really, but their blocks just don't cater to my body shape, and to get them to my body shape is so much work. And I don't have that amount of work with other patterns, and so I kind of think just try some other patterns. You may well have a completely different experience, and don't let my experience put you off, but just be aware that you may have some changes or you may not. Karina had a really good experience, so just see how you get on. The next question is, does the design work well for my shape? Yes and no. Overall, the way that it stops at the waist, I like that. I used to think that that wouldn't be very flattering on me, but actually I found with my Audrey jacket that I got a lot of compliments on the length that it came down to, which was the same as this pattern. So I was happy to do that length again, but there was too much excess fabric here. So I've just put it on to show you. And here you'll see like loads of fabric just pulls there. And actually it could have done with me doing a princess seam there, but because I had the dart there, I just didn't have time to sit and think about what I needed to do. So I just left it. And it's the same on that side. So it's not really a great fit, and I had to make so many changes. Let me sit down again. So yeah, it wasn't a great fit, and you can see on the shoulders, despite moving 1.5 inches in, it's still not sitting, it should be sitting there. So I still need another 1/2 inch, and because I took a bit off there, it's a bit gappy there. To be fair, I'll only be wearing this to the shop, so no one's going to care about that. But I do like the way I finished it on the inside. I think that's quite pretty. The pink goes with the dress I'm wearing. Will you make it again, and are there any changes that you would make? Potentially I will make this again, but only because I've made so many changes and got it to this point that I kind of want to try again. And I am going to finish the brown one as well, even though I can't wear it yet. But yeah, I think I'm going to try it again. Something else I've toyed with, but I didn't have time to put it today, is to put poppers here, because there's no closure there. And it does cross over, look. We put some poppers there if I wanted. And that would get rid of the pooling that I am seeing there. As patterns go, it's a really super easy pattern. There's no zips, there's no buttons, no buttonholes, no closures of any kind. So you could really zip right through it. The pattern actually has you put bias binding all around the edge of the coat to finish it off. I didn't want to go down that road, but that's an option to learn bias binding. In terms of how much fabric I use, because I didn't let you know that before, I think it was just under 2 meters. I did want to do more with this pattern. As I mentioned, I wanted to do princess seams. Also wanted to taper it in more at the waist, but I really needed more time with this pattern to be able to do those things. And to be honest, I'm not in love with the pattern enough that I would do that. So I just want to give a massive thank you to Karina for doing this collaboration with me, for asking me in the first place, in fact, and for doing it. And she's been so friendly over Messenger. Obviously, she's living in Brazil and I'm living in the UK, so there was no opportunity for us to meet up. Through the process of making the collaboration and talking about it and whatnot through Messenger, I have got to know her a bit better, which was really nice actually. As I mentioned, I have been watching her channel for quite a long time now, and it was really nice to get to know, because you only get to know someone so much through video, and when you chat personally it's a bit nice, and we had some really good chats actually. Produced a video at the same time as me and it is up now. So once this video is finished, why don't you head over to her channel and watch her version, and then, because it'd be quite nice, especially if you're a different body type to me, that you, or even to Karina, it's quite nice that we're such different body types that you can get a perspective from both of us on how the pattern works. So do head over, and I know she's got some hacking tips in her video, she's bound to have. Do see what she does, and she did something a little bit different to me, so she is definitely worth a watch. I'm pretty sure most of you are already subscribed to her anyway, but if you haven't, do hit subscribe over on her channel as well. So, question of the day, have you made the Lilliana by Seamwork yet? If you have, how did you find it? If you haven't, did this review help make your mind up as to whether you will give it a go? I know my review wasn't completely positive. I'm not completely unhappy with my final product, although I could have made further changes, but that's partly my own lack of experience as well as the pattern drafting. So if you haven't hit subscribe on my channel yet, now's your chance. If you look for that red button below or in the little corner there, then you will be able to find it. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when I upload new videos and new content. If there's something you would specifically like to see from me, do let me know down below. Until next time, bye for now.